Question of the morning. Austin Ainge says the Jazz do not have a general consensus of opinion on the player to draft with the number 2 pick. Sound about right with 3 weeks to go. Bum, bum, bum. Or smokescreen. Not telling the rest of the NBA what I'm thinking.
Well.
Have you ever finished a project 3 weeks in advance of the due date? Or do you mess around with it and tinker with it? It's not done. It could be done, but it's not done because it doesn't have to be done, so you keep tinkering with the project.
Well, I know when, I was primarily a writer, a lot of what you're writing is literally due at 10 o'clock that night, right? Mm-hmm. But if I was working on some stuff that was more long range, I'd write it, let it sit, go back, do that 2 or 3 times, depending on how much time I had before the written project was due, because you gain different perspective. And then you look at it 24 hours later and you say, ooh, man, that's an ugly sentence. I can do way better than that. Whereas if you're writing on deadline, you're just trying to get
crank it out and go, baby. The game tips.
Hopefully it makes sense.
Yeah. The game tips at 7. It ends at 9, and it's due at 10. And I got to talk to the big man.
Yeah, right. And that's the life you lead or did lead. It's different now with, a lot of places don't have the printed edition, although they don't want the editors sitting there till 2 a.m. because you're farting around. So It may not be as tight. And if you miss deadline, I've literally been screamed at a time or two for missing deadline. It's not a good feeling. So, yeah, I think you do that and you look at stuff, you evaluate stuff, and you improve it with perspective. In terms of the Jazz, I like how you read that question, because you see that's redundancy at its finest. The general consensus of opinion. Well, consensus would simply work, but you've got to sound smart. The suspect in the vehicle, the way they talk in the jargon, on all that stuff. But yeah, I think right now we're in to an extent, not completely, but to an extent, we're still in the poker playing phase. I'm not going to reveal my hand. You're not going to reveal your hand. And there's all sorts of stuff that's out there. Austin spoke to that. The communication that you have with various teams is constant. And then it may not be literally with the same team every time, but you're talking, and the other team that you would like to make a deal with, most specifically, they're talking too, because you have to pursue every possible angle to make your team better. And even if probably the case is, and these guys have told us this, the amount of talking that actually leads to a consuming, or what am I looking for?
A deal.
Consummating a deal. That's in the minority. It's all this talking that goes ahead. I do believe that they are gathering information constantly. And I also believe that they are reaching levels of comfortability with the potential candidates that they may draft.
They've gotten a lot of health info on Peterson. And if you believe everything you hear, they're comfortable with what they've seen.
I do.
On his health.
I believe that.
Because as part of the poker game, they could be saying that, and then later we might find out differently.
I don't think that it is any form of breaking news or giving away anything to say they, along with others, are enthralled by this young man's talent and the possibilities. Yeah. And that's something that is enticing. We've all seen him play. And at his best, you can make an argument without really trying that hard that he is the best NBA prospect that is out there. And you can argue going back a few years if you want to Wembanyama. If you wanted to go, that doesn't really matter. It's about the guys this year. And it's fairly easy to say this kid in 2 to 3 years, 4 years will be, of all these kids, and there's some very good kids there. And I know Wilson's kind of the wild card because he's the rawest, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And what does that mean? What's it going to be when they're simply only 23, 24 years of age? You just look at Keontae George for an example. these kids are all coming in. They're all having basically now the same cookie cutter background. They probably go to multiple high schools as they seek the best competition, and maybe a specialized high school, not your normal neighborhood high school. And then they do the AAU stuff, all that, and then they go to college for the year. So they're all fitting these certain levels of boxes that it's like every one of them is in there right now.
A lot of them have played internationally in an age group competition.
18 and under, 17 and under, whatever it is. They're all in that same group. So how do you determine who's going to be better at 23? Well, look at Keontae George. What did he go, 16? I've looked at the draft. It's fun to do, but my guess is that he would be at least 10 places higher if he were drafted knowing what we know now, right? And he blossomed so much. And then reading Ben Anderson tweeting about, he's talking to that, what's her name, Kristen Peak, and she's there back at the lottery, and then she's goes to Chicago, and she's saying Keontae's there. This guy wants to see these players. Well, his level of maturity relative to the game, which is going to lead to his success, has just soared through the roof. Everybody's ecstatic with this young guy now, right? His workouts and the commitment that he's making. Well, that's stuff that's sort of, it's a little bit intangible-ish, if that's a word. And when you're looking at someone who's 19, but now that he's 22, turning 23, look at him go, man. This is looking like he's going to be a great pick. We'll see how it continues to develop. But the arrow on this young man, and I used the phrase young man on purpose, not ball player, not player, but young man, is really skyrocketing. So trying to figure out all this stuff, because you look at this, they're playing against each other, and Peterson moved around as far as different schools. His father, Locke, was talking about interviewing somebody. Oh my gosh, I've heard some stuff about he's Earl Woods and Richard Williams is speaking of the Williams sisters and obviously Tigers. Yeah, well, that's probably what it requires, because look at the results that Richard and Earl got. If you want to say they got results, you got the generational best golfer and the generational best tennis player. And so, they're heavily involved. And Daryl Peterson, I think his name is heavily involved in his son's basketball career. We saw AJ DeBonce's father, Ace, was there every step of the way. Wasn't he on the set when AJ committed on ESPN to Stephen A. Smith? Yeah. Okay. All right. But you got to look at that too. Is that going to be a hindrance? Well, that's probably what it's going to be in terms of involvement. Whether it's a hindrance or not, I can't say.
You, as a parent, the perception is you're going to be pushy. And for sure, that whole, stage parent thing, we hear that in, the Hollywood, Broadway, whatever kind of stuff. And that's always there for sports. And at the same time, this is such a big business. How much can you really step back when people are making big decisions? We see this dramatized, like what was the movie? Was it Yak? What was the name of that movie? PK's not going to remember a movie name, but the one that dramatized Jordan signing with Nike. And you see how involved his parents are. Like you're not going to fly him. You're not going to fly your kid to Nike to meet with these shoe companies and not go and not be involved. I mean, of course, the parents are front and center.
The story centered on his mom. Mainly.
Yes, it did. Yeah. So they're going to be there, and then what are they going to be like when the parents are no longer there hovering? And you're drafting largely 19-year-olds. Air? Okay, yeah. The movie Air, you can see it. They're drafting 19-year-olds. Of course, the parents are super involved when the kids are 15, 16, 17, 18. And of course, that level of involvement isn't going to be appropriate at 22, 24, 26, 28. And what direction are the kids going to go? It's a little like letting an air out of a balloon. It goes zooming around. I mean, the arrow could go straight up. You could be Jalen Brunson. We'll get to that. Of a guy who's just constantly improved and gotten better. And then, man, PK, how long a list could we drop of guys who've gone sideways or gone backwards? Right? But you don't have that moderating influence of there's the parent hovering, guiding things. The way it's just going to be different at 25 and 15.
Or they do, and it doesn't work. John Morant comes to mind.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, the parents who keep hovering, that's going to be a problem. I'll never forget watching Pete Sampras at the end of his career, and they showed his parents who were watching him play in person at Wimbledon for the first time. They didn't want to hover. They didn't even go to Wimbledon and sit in the 20th row and stay in their own hotel and not talk to him. I think I would at least do that. Can you imagine if you did the NBA Finals or the Stanley Cup Final we're in now, or the Women's U.S. Open? Pretty sure I'd be somewhere in person. Might not be in the front row, but I can't imagine just sitting home in another continent watching.
Yeah, that doesn't seem likely. Tom Brady's father. And a lot of them, they were their coaches. Yeah. They coached a high school team.
Brett Favre's dad, right? Yeah.
The list goes on and on as far as that goes. So you got all these things going on there. And Austin Ainge not revealing his hand is probably the smart thing to do.
So the question is, because obviously he wasn't going to say, hey, we're going to take so-and-so with the number 2 pick.
No, but he could have said we're zeroing in on someone without saying who the someone is.
And if the draft were tonight, they'd have an answer. But because they don't have to have an answer, they don't have to have one now, they can mull it over. Although it would be interesting to know if everybody wrote on a piece of paper today, here's who I would pick if I were calling the shots, and here's who I think the organization is going to take, then in 3 weeks when it really happens, how right are people right now? Because they don't have to be done. They get to keep talking about it. They get to keep checking more and more sources and double-checking and cross-checking and all that. But is the answer really going to change? And they can all say this isn't our final answer because it doesn't have to be, even though they might have a pretty good idea.
I think final answer is equal to right now final deal on the table. Whether it's moving up or whether it's moving down. Right. And so they can have if they want to move up, they've got to initiate a deal. Right. If somebody wants to be where they're at, then team whomever
Memphis
has
or
to
Chicago
contact the Jazz. Yeah. So they have to make a final deal to Washington, or somebody has to make a final deal to them. And with 3 weeks to go, it's still too early because you also need to be doing your research. If the thing were held tonight at 6 o'clock and you get 15 minutes, then probably around 6:15, 6:20, we would hear with the second pick of the draft, the Utah Jazz select Darren Peterson of Kansas.
Seems most likely.
Yes, I believe, and I'm not providing any great insight, although I think I have a little, that they are captivated by his talent, as is
everybody was captivated by his talent a year or two ago. I mean, he's been that guy. The only question is the whole availability issue, and it seems like if that box gets checked and you got confidence there, then you have a lot of confidence making the pick.
His talent has been enthralling virtually every step of the way.
Yeah,
and it was last year.
When he played and he got on a roll, it was awesome. And you can totally project and see why people get so excited. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So smooth, man.
All right, DJ and PK, when we come back, it's game 2 of the finals tonight. Jalen Brunson coming off a 30-point game. How did he last until the second round? There are probably several reasons. We will get to that next. Stay with us.